Hello and welcome back to my channel. As you can see by the title of the video, we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. As you can also see by the date that this was uploaded, it is probably August or September. Does that mean it's too late to do this tag? Absolutely not. It's just a really great way to gauge where we are before heading into the end of the year. So let's just jump right in because there's a lot of questions. I did no prep work for this, so I have no idea how this is gonna go. The first question is, what is the best book I've read so far in 2024? Usually by this point in the year, I have several 5-star reads under my belt, and this year I don't. One of my goals for the year was to read not that many mid books, and I felt like I have read a lot of mid books. So this is gonna go to the one, if not possibly the only 5-star book I have read so far this year, Foundry Side. I jumped into this with no expectations. My friend Zoran raves about this book. I was really excited to read it, and it did not disappoint. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I still think about it and then get crushed when I think about the sequel because the sequel was not as good. And speaking of sequels, the next question is, what is the best sequel that I have read so far in 2024? And for this category, I'm actually going to give 2 books. The first one is Temple of No God by H.M. Long. This is a sequel to Hall of Smoke and takes place in Hannah's Norse mythology inspired fantasy series, and it is so good. Top tier, so good. Hannah is one of my favorite writers. She was one of my favorite fantasy writers period, but also fantasy writers. And every time I open one of Hannah's books, I know I'm not going to be disappointed, and this was no exception. And the second book I actually have a physical copy of, which is kind of rare, even though there are all these books on this bookshelf behind me. This is the third book in the, I have to read this as I say it out loud, A League of Extraordinary Women series by Evie Dunmore, Portrait of a Scotsman. One of my favorite books in this series. What is a new release that I haven't read yet, but I want to? I feel so much shame that this book is sitting on my shelf and I haven't read it yet. An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I love S.T.'s writing, and I also have Evocation, which could also fall under this category, but I'm gonna go with An Education Malice. What is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? So I'm gonna go like September to December releases. I am really excited that the third book in the Bloodsworn series is coming out, Fury of the Gods. It's supposed to come out in October. I feel apprehension. What am I trying to say? Am cautious when I say that things are definitely releasing, because I've just seen a lot of books recently get pushed back very close to their release date. So cautiously optimistic that it will be releasing in October, and I will have it in my hands so soon. What was my biggest disappointment that I have read so far this year? I feel like there have been a lot. Should we just go through all of them? Probably Shorefall. I think like I mentioned earlier, is the sequel to Foundry Side. It felt wildly different from the first book, and in a way that I could not fathom how the series could continue with the way the second book had been structured, and really did put me off to the point where I think I'm just gonna hold Foundry Side like off to the side in its own little case and enjoy it for what it is, and I'm not gonna think about the fact that it's part of a series, because I truly was so off-put and like confused by the second book that I don't want to read the third one. My biggest surprise, Someone You Can Build a Nest In by John Wiswell. I had no idea how I was going to feel about this book. I am trying to slowly add more horror into what I read, especially because I do enjoy dark fantasy, and a lot of times when it's that dark fantasy horror together, that's a real sweet spot for me, and that is exactly what this is. It just had a beautiful element of comedy in it as well, and romance. Like, it was everything I could have dreamed of in a horror novel, and it was so fantastic. I saw it on somebody's Instagram post the week it came out. I immediately went out and bought it, and I feel like I devoured it. I just fell so in love. And I'll tell you what it's about in case you are also interested. So we meet Sheshin, and she is an amorphous blob monster and lives in a cave inside a house, and one day people break into her house while she's hibernating and basically tell her that she is the cause of a curse for a family, and the family is coming to take their ancestral home back. And she's like, well, I've been living here for a really long time and I don't remember cursing anybody, so what the heck? And she ends up running into this woman who kind of takes her under her wing because she's injured, and because of her amorphous blobness, she can change her appearance. So she is now presenting as a human and is sort of trying to figure out how to get this human to help her. And along the way, the two of them just embark on this such an imaginative journey. And you don't expect it to be so heartwarming and endearing because there is so much horror, but it is so wonderful, and I just love it so much. Favorite new author. My favorite new to me author is Lisa Kleypas. I have fallen in love with her historical romance novels. I read the Wallflower series and am currently in the midst of the Ravenel series, and I just feel like I'm going to continue to devour as much of her historicals to the end of the year as possible and into the future. I have to kind of pace myself because I feel like I'm just trying to devour it, and I'm like, just take your time. There's so many books to read. I actually don't think I've read any debut authors in the, like, this is their first book being published this year. I have read a couple books that were indie published and then were picked up by a traditional publisher, so that doesn't really count because it's not their debut. Who is my newest fictional crush? I am in love with Sebastian, Lord St. Vincent from Devil in Winter. He is just, even though he's a little villainous, just a little, he falls so hard so fast. And I could say the same. I've been reading a lot of men that are same, just different fonts. Lucian in A Portrait of a Scotsman. I love him. I love him, even though he's a little dumb. Not dumb, he just doesn't know how to communicate his feelings. Newest favorite character. I really do love an inanimate object or like animal, so Clef from Foundry Side is probably one of my favorite characters. And then in The Undertaking of Twyla and Frank, there's this, like, I love the baby dragon, but the mom dragon that we get to meet over the course of the book, she very quickly became one of my favorite characters. I am obsessed with her. She doesn't talk, but the way Megan Bannon was able to characterize her and really bring her to life through the scenes she was in, incredible. Book that made me cry. I have to really think about this one because I don't know that anything has really, like, gut punched me this year, and I've been very strategic about that for a reason. I've got my little notes thing here. Has anything made me cry? I don't think I've read anything that has made me cry, at least not notably, so guess we gotta add that. I mean, I'm staring at my fall TBR because that's what I'm filming next, and I'm sure there's a book in there that's gonna make me cry, so I'll be crying by the end of the year. Book that made you happy. Oh my god, so many. I feel like I need to start talking about this book and keep reading this series, actually. That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. This book made me uncontrollably happy. It did the same thing for me that Someone You Can Build a Nest In can. It's blurred out, you can't see it. In that it melded together so many things that I love to see in books. So it was a fantasy romance that was like cozy adjacent. So it felt very cozy in my heart, but there were like limbs getting ripped off. And there was like a quest that was very violent. And I know I'm smiling when I say that, but I really enjoy, I mean, there's a reason why I love the Bloodsworn series by John Gwynne. Like I really love the sort of like visceral fantasy novels, and the marriage of the romance and that style of fantasy that Kimberly is able to achieve was just so fantastic. The most beautiful book that I have bought or received this year. I don't think I've bought any special editions this year. I have really cut down on my book spending, only because this is a lot. It's a lot. Let's take a little perusal and see what we can find. The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Witten. I just think this cover is so stunning. I still need to get the finished copy to match my finished copy of Foxglove King, which is hidden on my shelf somewhere. I love this style. It's so intriguing to me, and I think it's so beautiful. And this one was sent to me. This is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. The cover alone is so beautiful, but it also has these gorgeous lavender sprayed edges that I love so much. So this is another good one. I'm kind of disappointed that I don't have any off the top of my mind that I'm like, oh, I want to show this off. And we have reached the final question. What books do I need to read by the end of the year? Like I said earlier, I am getting ready to film my fall TBR video, so I won't go too in depth, but I'm gonna pick 2 books off of that list and show you. 2 things I'm trying to prioritize for the end of the year are reading more fantasy books and reading some of these small books that are on my shelf. So up first, we have Fatebreaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is the 3rd book in the Realmbreaker series. I don't know if the series actually has a different name than that. It might, but it's the 3rd book to Realmbreaker, and I have just been sitting on this. I don't know why. I went to the event for it. Like, I've been so excited. So definitely this, but also like fantasy books in general. I have not read enough fantasy books this year, so I'm super excited for this one. And then of course, specifically Carmilla, I'm really excited to read going into the fall and spooky season. Like, hello, yes, this is what I want to be reading. Also, just small books in general. I just happen to have a handful on my shelf that I haven't read yet, and I'm like, why not? They're like maybe 100 pages. Pick them up. And you can check out the rest of the books that are gonna be on my fall TBR in my next main channel video. And that is all the questions on the mid-year book freakout tag. That was fun, but also really made me realize that I have not read half the amount of books that I thought I was going to read. I did give myself a goal of reading 50 books, and I have just surpassed that. I think I just finished my 60th book this morning. And normally I think I'm a little bit farther along in the year, so maybe I'm feeling a little frustrated by that. I also know that I have just been like reading what calls to me. While that has been fun, it hasn't necessarily been fulfilling. I do have to remind myself that at the beginning of the year I opened a Broadway show, and I'm about to open a Broadway show again. And that process really does so much to the brain chemistry that is not facilitative of wanting to read. So we'll see what the next couple months has in store. I would love for you to pick 1 or 2 questions from this list and answer them down in the comments below, whichever one's called to you. And please let me know if there are any other tag videos that you like to see creators do. I love these types of videos. They're just very fun to do. That is gonna be it from me. My schedule for uploading is gonna be a little bit in flux over the fall, so please bear with me. You can stay up to date with me on Instagram. I will always post when I have a new video up on my stories. You should just follow me there anyway so we can stay connected. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!